At least 25 people have died after torrential rains caused landslides and flooded Chengdu City in central China. World Health Organization warned that 75% of the vaccines against COVID-19 have already been administered in only 10 countries. Cuban government confirmed that the new campaign against the country has been dismantled. Hello, welcome to From the South. From the teleSUR headquarters in Caracas, Venezuela, I am Janet Perez Moya. We begin with the news. Stay with us. China faced a historic flood in what weather observers said were the heaviest rains in 1,000 years. According to officials who briefed journalists on Wednesday, at least 25 died in and around Chengdu, the capital of Henan province, including 12 people in the subway. Days of torrential rains that began on Saturday create a sense of destruction that suggests the death toll could rise much higher. From Saturday to Tuesday, 600 millimeters of rainfall in Chengdu, that is almost equal to Chengdu's annual average. In a sign of the severity of the disaster, China's leader Xi Jinping ordered the authorities to give top priority to people's safety. Meanwhile, Beijing rescue teams get ready to aid flood-hit area in central China. The Beijing's Blue Sky Rescue Team prepares life rafts and relief goods ahead a mission to aid the flood-stricken central China province of Henan. The Volunteers Rescue Network dispatched a total of 72 Beijing members who set off for the city of Chengdu on Wednesday. Chinese Minister of Foreign Affairs spokesperson Zhao Lijian laid out the U.S. and Japan for their pledge to jointly safeguard the stability in the Taiwan Strait on Wednesday.
The United States and Japan are clinging to the Cold War mentality, deliberately engaging in group confrontation and trying to create an anti-China encirclement. This is completely against the trend of the times and runs counter to the common expectations of the most countries in the region and the world to seek peace, development, and promote cooperation. The United States and Japan should immediately stop interfering in China's internal affairs and undermine regional peace and stability. China will resolutely defend its sovereignty, security, and development interests.
In Ahrweiler, a town in western Germany devastated by floods, residents are clearing out their homes and discovering the extent of the disaster. The west of the country was deluged over 2 days last week, with torrents of water sweeping away trees, cars and bridges and destroying swathes of houses. Germany has deployed 850 soldiers to assist with its disaster relief efforts after severe flooding left at least 105 people dead in 2 western states. A state of emergency has been declared in Russia's Karelia region due to the large-scale forest fires. A state of high alert for forest fires was declared on the region on July 14. According to at least data, 38 forest fires in Gufen, 7,000 hectares are active in Karelia, of which 15 has been contained on 1,000 hectares. As many as 600 people have been evacuated. Military helicopters helped to tackle the fires, dropping 26 metric tons of water on the most active fires. A state of emergency is also in effect in another 10 Russian regions. Russia on Wednesday successfully launched a long-delayed lab module for the International Space Station that is intended to provide more room for scientific experiments and space for the crew. A Proton and booster rocket carrying the Nauka module lifted off as scheduled from the Russian space launch facility in Bainokur, Kazakhstan. After a series of maneuvers, the 20 metric ton module is set to dock at the International Space Station 8 days later. The launch of Nauka, also called the Multipurpose Laboratory Module, has been repeatedly delayed because of technical problems. It was initially scheduled to go up in 2007. In 2013, experts found contamination in its fuel system, resulting in a long and costly replacement. Hungary's Prime Minister Viktor Orbán said Wednesday that the referendum will be held to domestic support for a LGBTQ law after the European Commission launched legal actions against Budapest over the measure. The legislation, which includes a ban of promotion of homosexuality and gender reassignment to under 18s, was built by Budapest as a way to protect children, but opponents argue that it conflates pedophilia with homosexuality and stigmatizes the LGBTQ community. Orbán said the referendum will include 5 questions, including asking citizens if they agree to that schools should be permitted to talk about sexuality to their children without their consent.
The bureaucrats from Brussels make threats. They start infringement procedures. They abuse their power. I ask you to say no together to these questions, as we said no as well 5 years ago, when Brussels tried to force immigrants upon Hungary.
We will take a short break now, but don't forget to follow me on my Twitter account at Peresmoya Telesur. Don't go away. Welcome back. Director General of the World Health Organization, Tedros Adhanom, warned that 75% of the vaccines against COVID-19 has already been administered in only 10 countries and blamed the inequality on a lack of political commitment. Adhanom pointed out that the required resources to end the COVID-19 pandemic already exist. He denounced the lack of real commitment on the part of the world's governments to achieve it. Meanwhile, the Director General recalled that each government must pledge to protect its population and strive to vaccinate at least 10% of each country's population by September 2021, 40% by the end of this year, and 70% by mid-2022. It is a pandemic whose spread can be controlled. Russia announced Wednesday that a batch of its Sputnik V coronavirus vaccine was produced for the first time in Vietnam, which is battling a new wave of COVID-19 infections. The Russian Direct Investment Fund said in a statement that the test batch was produced in partnership with Vietnam's state-owned pharmaceutical company Biotech. They add that the first samples from the batch will be shipped to the Gamaleya Center in Moscow, the vaccine's developer, for quality control. Vietnam has recently faced a surge in new infections, with the government putting about a third of its country, 100 million people, under stay-at-home orders to contain the outbreak. Russian President Vladimir Putin expressed his frustration with the West's hesitation in approving Russian coronavirus vaccines during a cabinet meeting on Wednesday.
Of course, it is hard to understand many of our colleagues who are continuing to differentiate between their own pandemic and someone else's, in particular, slowing down the registration of our vaccines, which are unquestionably safe and effective. I hope we can cooperate in this work after all.
In India, a government study suggests that up to 2/3 of the nation's population may have been infected with COVID-19.
Here we have this number, that is the overall seroprevalence is 67.6% in the entire population, which is from 6 years and adults included. In conclusion, 2/3 of the general population, that is above the age of 6 years, had SARS-CoV-2 infection. More importantly, 1/3 of the population did not have any antibodies. That is still approximately 40 crore population of this country is still vulnerable.
The government of Mexico sent pilot package tests of the Sputnik V vaccine to the Gamaleya National Research Institute of Epidemiology and Microbiology located in Russia to be analyzed by qualified specialists. The shipment was authorized after the necessary procedures for its transfer were complete since the pilot tests of components 1 and 2 were kept at the National Institute of Virology. In a press release, the Pharmaceutical Institute highlighted the successful package of the components where 10 liters of the active substance were used. Once the shipment is complete, Mexico must wait for the official response within the next 21 days to obtain the corresponding quality certificates. Ecuadorian health authorities have confirmed 40 cases of the COVID-19 Delta strain in the country. Most of these cases are located in the province bordering Peru. Minister of Health confirmed the number of cases and stressed that the Delta strain not only multiplies the number of cases rapidly, but also increases medical complications, so the mortality risk is much higher. The minister also reiterated that the only way to avoid these complications or a worse outcome is to complete the vaccination schedule. Therefore, she urged the citizens to participate in the vaccination campaigns as soon as possible. More stories coming up. Stay with us. Welcome back. The Cuban government confirmed that the new smear campaign against the country has been dismantled after the political and media operation promoted and financed by the United States on alleged lists of disappeared people in Cuba. Authorities of the Ministry of the Interior strongly state that there are no people missing on the island in relation to the recent protests or in any other demonstration that has taken place. Colonel Victor Alvarez Valle stated that there are no secret establishments for the processing of people who are taken to the justice system. Colonel Alvarez also said that in the recent cases, all the family members of those detained know where their relatives are being held, and it can be confirmed by the prosecutor's office. This judicial body stressed that human rights of all arrests are fully respected in accordance with the Constitution. Colonel Victor Alvarez Valle from the Ministry of the Interior's Department of Criminal Investigation confirmed that in Cuba there are no secret prisons or detention facilities other than those controlled by the justice system.
As I said before, there are no secret prisons in Cuba, no secret units. There is no place in Cuba where you can take a detainee outside the procedures and issues that are established by law.
In this same context, José Luis Reyes, head of the Criminal Proceedings Department of the Attorney General's Office, added that an arrest is preceded by complaint and that there are open channels of communication so that any citizens can report any violation committed by the Central State Administration agencies.
Y a partir del día 12 de este mes de julio, por hechos asociados
Since July 12, 63 people have approached the prosecutor's office.
Pues se han producido, es decir, se han dirigido a la fiscalía 63 personas. 63 personas. Mayormente la vía utilizada ha sido la presencia
mostly in person, to ask certain questions and seek information about arrest.
Diferentes provincias a formular determinadas inquietudes.
This Wednesday, Cuba's Minister of Foreign Affairs, Bruno Rodriguez, denounced on Twitter a U.S. attempt to force OAS countries to issue a joint statement against Cuba. The foreign minister tweeted, "I denounce that U.S. State Department is exercising brutal pressures on the government of the group of OAS states, forcing them to support this statement or issue a similar one." Bruno Rodriguez challenged U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken to recognize or refute the authenticity of the text draft at the State Department. The United States government announced on Wednesday that it will impose new sanctions against Cuba officials using as a pretext to allege repression during the recent acts of violence on the island. In a statement issued by White House spokeswoman Jen Psaki, it was announced that the Department of the Treasury will have under investigation those Cuban officials considered responsible for alleged violence and repression during the demonstrations described as peaceful by the U.S. Furthermore, the White House insists on its interest in sending alleged humanitarian aid to the island through the private sector. The new coercive measure comes in the midst of the strengthening of the economic, commercial and financial blockade imposed by Washington against Cuba within the framework of the coronavirus pandemic. Chile's Senate approved on Wednesday a preliminary marriage equality bill, a historic step for the nation's LGBT community. With 22 votes in favor and 16 against, the Senate approved the idea to legislate a bill to legalize same-sex marriage, which will be now reviewed in further details in the upper chamber. After it passes, the legislation will have to be passed through the lower house chambers of deputies, where it is expected to face intense opposition from conservative lawmakers, allied with President Sebastián Piñera. The approved bill was first presented to Congress in 2017 by former President Michelle Bachelet. Social movements that make up the National Strike Committee continue to mobilize to present before the Colombian Congress the list of demands raised to bills that includes the demand for the social crisis that the country is experiencing. Through some members of Congress, the movement will present a legislative proposal with which is expected to file this very day. Groups of opposition senators have reiterated that the way out of the country's current crisis is through the implementation of those bills that President Iván Duque has refused to negotiate. The movement also seeks an immediate stop to the government's actions aimed at restricting and suppressing social protests after the entry into office of the last legislative period of the current government. Unions, students and indigenous people maintain their rejection over the government's neoliberal agenda. Haiti's National Police announced the arrest of the 3 people of their alleged involvement in President Juvenal Moïse's assassination. The General Director of the police, Leon Charles, said that among those arrests are officers Bonnie Gregory and Clifton Hippolyte, in addition to citizen Dominique Coben, who allegedly attended meetings where Moïse's murder was planned. In the framework of the investigation, authorities have arrested a total of 26 people, including 18 Colombians accused of being part of the commando that committed the crime. Also in Haiti, the transition was made as Prime Minister to Ariel Henry, who assumed it from Claude Joseph as the maximum authority of this Caribbean nation. The new Prime Minister Ariel Henry thanks all the members of the outgoing cabinet and took the opportunity to pay a minute of silence in honor of the president. Juvenal Moïse, in this regard, Henry thanks the country that collaborates in the investigation of this assassination. On his administration, he assured that he is ready to engage in talks with all sectors of Haiti to develop the economy and boost the nation's growth. We have come to the end of this news brief. You can find this and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. For Telesur English, I am Janet Perez Moya. Thank you for watching.